All right. Human nature is that we see things, and what we see, we think is real. You know, so a friend once told me that everybody, what they say, they have a discount. Some people, what they say, you can discount it, 50%. Other people, they're very honest and just discount 10% what they said. But how about what you see? How much of that do you discount? So what we see, we think is reality. And therefore we can see someone who acts in a perfect, beautiful way. And we think that they're righteous. We think that they're complete in everything about them. It's not necessarily what you see is what you get, even though someone who was impeccable in their actions, in their words, no discount on their words. In other words, they are very honest, extremely honest with what they say. That's what we see of a person, and therefore we would conclude that they must be righteous. And which is a natural thing to do, to see what the human mind, or the human eye rather, and the mind perceives. But we need to know that, first of all, we see things from our own perspective. And we're not seeing from another person's perspective. And secondly, we are only seeing externally, and we're not seeing what's going on inside of the person. Imagine a person who has no triggers, not even faintly, or no negative triggers at least. Maybe a positive trigger, yeah. But no negative triggers. What an individual that is, right? That's a righteous topic. Welcome to Tanya Today. I'm Rabbi Nolan Cohen. Continuing with you in chapter 12 about the Beinoni, the intermediate individual, the in-betweener. And who are we? We join here, BIT's Beinoni in training. We're in training for that of a Beinoni. Of that in-between individual. Now, let us just recall that even though the Beinoni has complete mastery over their actions, their words, and even willful cogitated thought, complete, yet they're not called a righteous person. Why is that? Because the divine soul only has dominance to remove the darkness, the folly, the klipa, the shell that covers over the divine, only in thought, speech, and action, which are, as we call them, garments of the soul, and not the essence, the core of the soul, which is the mind itself. We have to make a distinction between the mind and thoughts. thoughts are in the mind, and often we kind of equate the two, but they're not. There's thoughts in the mind, and then there is the mind itself. Now, there's the way we perceive things in the mind. And then there's, of course, the emotions that we have. That is in animal souls, emotions. So the Bainani has not conquered that. It still remains undisturbed in the left ventricle of the heart of the animal soul. Even though during prayer, it's as if it was not dormant, but after prayer, it comes back. So then what keeps the Bainani going throughout the day? During prayer, it's like an open, fiery, passionate love of God that is there. But after prayer, it recedes. It doesn't by the time the tzaddik, whether prayer, whether eating a meal, believe it or not, it's the same. I don't know. I shouldn't say it's the same, but I wouldn't call it the same, but it both have this fiery passion towards God. Which, we understand that therefore a topic is a completely different type of being. The Bainani doesn't have it after prayers. Yeah, prayer is totally very connected, and the animal soul is kind of dormant. But that's all it is dormant, because after the prayers, it comes back. So what keeps the Bainani afterwards is what we call avamisiteris, the hidden love. Something we'll discuss in chapters 18 through 25, the hidden love that's there. That's a natural, nature of the godly soul. It's there that gives the person the capability to not allow the animal soul to have any self-expression in thought, speech, or action. She's pretty amazing. Right? But the thoughts, negative thoughts will come. Not a negative thought that will bring a person to do anything, not for the Bainani to do anything, but a negative thought will come. Right? A sinful thought will enter the mind of the Bainani. Now, Elder Eben says something very important over here, is that in a way, sinful thought is even worse than anything, because thought is the closest expression of who you are. You can say something, say to someone, I love you, but not mean it. You can even do an action of love, but not mean it. But the thoughts that you have of love, you mean it, because it's really you, because it is an internal expression of yourself to yourself. And therefore, having negative thoughts, sinful thoughts in a certain way is worse than the act of acting upon it. Now, of course, to act upon it, you need to have a thought, right? And this is something diametrically opposed to Western thought. Western thought is, if you have a lustful thought about somebody, it's one thing, but don't act on it. Here, in a certain way, it's worse, the thought itself, than the action. Again, on a certain level, not on the level vis-a-vis, not the effect that you have, not the consequence of the act, but the depth of the negativity within the soul of the person is deeper within the thoughts of the individual than it is within the action itself. Right? And that's why our sages say that there are three things that a person who's not righteous will transgress daily. And that is a lack of concentration in prayer, that the mind goes astray, speaking some kind of gossip, and lustful thoughts that will come to an individual. And again, the chiddush, the novelty over here is on a certain level, the thought is worse than the act. Again, not in its consequence. In its consequence, obviously, acting upon a negative thought, an improper thought, a sinful thought. Of course, acting upon it, the consequence of it is greater. But in the expression of how deep it is within you, it's the thought, because the thoughts and the thoughts of the person, that's where you are found. That's who you kind of are, which is important, to make note that what you think about is a greater indication of where you are in your life. Baal Shem Tov, after prayers, once came over to a Jew and he said, "Oh, Shalom, welcome back from the fair that you were at, in Leipzig, in Germany, fair." He says, "Redman, I came back a week ago." He says, "That's true. But in your prayers today, that's where you were in your mind. I'm just welcoming you back from being there." And with this, Baal Shem Tov says, the thoughts of the person, that's where you are. So if we think Tanya during the day, so that's, an indication of where we're at in our lives. If we think other things that are negative things, whatever they might be, so that's an indicator of where we're holding and where we're at in our lives. Won't be able to entertain questions today, but we will continue our conversation tomorrow. Back at Chabad Zifin Foundation, God willing. I'm Rabbi Ronnie Fine. Thanking you all for your patience. A bit late today to be here, to join. It's a privilege and a pleasure.